Hello and welcome to another edition of Addition. I'm your host, Addy Snowden. I'm a product manager at Google and a quantum life coach, helping you get happier, healthier, and wealthier by jumping into the reality of your dreams. You can book with me at calendly.com/editionpod. That is calendly.com/editionpod. The QR code on the live stream and the show notes in the podcast have a link to my website where you can learn more about me. So go ahead and hit the QR code. If you haven't already, hit the like. Go ahead and like the live, subscribe, follow, all of that. Share with a friend because we're going to talk about how to regain your power today, and I'm really excited about it. So before we get into the meat of the topic, which is how to regain your power, we're going to get into our celebrity example of the week. So as you know, I'm a quantum coach, helping you jump into the reality of your dreams. And when I notice in the news someone, showing examples if they have jumped into a completely different reality, like any kind of dramatic change, I want to talk about on the podcast. So this week we're going to talk about David Goggins. So some of you may have heard of him, some of you have not. He is a veteran, an athlete, an ultra marathon athlete. He's an author, he's a speaker. He has an amazing book that I will link in the show notes that you guys should all check out. But he's the example today of my celebrity quantum jump because of how he transformed himself completely to get where he is today. So David Goggins, he didn't have the best upbringing, but he decided he wanted to be in the military, and not just in the military. He wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Okay. So what were the challenges from going from, just a guy to, as an adult, deciding that you want to be a Navy SEAL? Well, he lost 100 pounds in 3 months to do SEAL training. He was overweight. He was in bad health. I believe he was going through a divorce at the time. But he was able to lose 100 pounds in 3 months by doing really dramatic. He had a very dramatic change. I'm not sure if this is healthy in any way, but he lost over 100 pounds in 3 months and survived Navy SEALs training and became a Navy SEAL. Can you imagine that much of a transition? It's an amazing story to hear because people once we know something is possible, then we think, oh, maybe that's something I can do. But someone has to be that pioneer and do something outrageous, something that someone has never done before in order to, create a path for everyone else. So anyway, so being a Navy SEAL wasn't enough. He also became an Army Ranger. Okay. So the two most elite military divisions he is a member of or a veteran of. He also went on to participate in ultra endurance events, 100-mile marathons, things like that. He also recently set the Guinness World Record for the most pull-ups in 24 hours. So David Goggins, I'm going to link his book in the show notes. If you don't believe that you can change your situation, all you have to do is read David Goggins' story, and that will inspire and encourage you to think a little bit bigger about what you can achieve in your life. So that's the celebrity quantum jump of the week. And I hope you guys check out his book because it's really great. All right. So today we're going to talk about power. So I had a whole other episode planned today and where I was going to talk about visualization, and we will get to that. But I had so many encounters today that made me think about power. And I have had to go on a personal power journey. I wasn't born powerful. I feel like I grew up, I didn't really know how to defend myself. I was an easy target, for sure. I was a mark. I was an easy target. I've been in 3 fights and I got beat up all 3 times. I'm kind of a wimp. But over the years, I've had to learn how to regain my power. So there's no such thing as empowerment. There's a lot of people have women's empowerment conferences, how to be empowered workshop. there's no such thing as empowerment, because empowerment to me assumes that you don't have power, and we all have power. So this is about regaining your power, the power that we already have. We have may have willingly or unwillingly given it away to people, places, things, behaviors, activities. And so this episode, I'm going to talk about my power journey. And I'm going to tell you about how I got to the level of power that I have today, which for some of you, you may think that's not a lot. And for some of you, you may think it's a lot. It's all about perspective and about where you are in your personal power journey. I will say I am very proud of the woman I am today. I'm very proud of how I show up. I consider myself courageous, brave, fearless in some ways. I'm not invincible, and I definitely have my weaknesses, which I will get into in my power story. But I consider myself a powerful woman. I believe I'm a powerful woman. So I'm going to tell you about how I got this way. All right. Okay. So my power journey, I would say my first encounter with power was girl power. Okay. Does everyone remember that period of time in like the 90s and 2000s where it was all about girl power? I went to an all-girls boarding school called the Madeira School, and their tagline still to this day may be "powered by girls." So all through school, our headmistress was close friends with Hillary Clinton, who was a senator at the time. And my school was all about girls can do everything. Girls can be smart. Girls can be powerful. So I took that opportunity to, seek powerful positions. I was that person that was running for a club president, all of those things. Like I was head of Model UN. I nominated myself to be captain of the volleyball team, and I was in a safe space to be powerful. And the message was very much encouraging power. So that's something that you can't necessarily replicate, especially if you're done with high school, but there are organizations that are about power and that encourage power. And if there aren't, then create your own. All you need to do is get a group of people around you who are okay with owning power. Like, I think as women, sometimes it's seen as a bad thing to want to be powerful, and we're supposed to be weak and helpless. And that's more attractive or whatever. But at the end of the day, bills are paid with money, and money is one of the currencies of power. So at the end of the day, a lot of times we do want power, and it's okay to want power. And that's really, really important to understand. So find yourself a group of people that are committed to gaining in power. Surround yourself with people who want power, who want to be powerful and want to encourage you to be powerful. It's important that everyone wants you to also be powerful. You can't just be in a group of powerful people and be the weak one. There has to be some incentive and encouragement to gain power. So that's how you can recreate my girl power journey in high school. Okay. So next, my power journey continued with the idea of boundaries. So in high school, I went to all girls boarding school. I would say it was pretty sheltered in some ways because I didn't have to set a lot of boundaries. Boundaries were already in place. It's like there's a certain bedtime. You can only have at certain time is quiet hours. You can't have people over at a certain time. You can't even go certain places. Everything was structured. So I never really had to set boundaries. So once I started going to therapy, which is a very important part of my power story, a lot of people see therapy as a weakness, but therapy is actually an incredible strength because it gives you emotional intelligence and resiliency in a way that if you don't go to therapy, you're just figuring it out on your own and relying most likely on your limiting beliefs. So a big message in therapy was boundaries and setting boundaries. And a lot of people may think that I come across as rude, but it's only because I'm setting boundaries. And that's one of the consequences of being in power or gaining power is a lot of people are not going to like you. And I think, honestly, to be likable and power are almost on two different ends of the spectrum, because in order to have power, you have to be willing to not be likable. because everyone loves the nice person. Loves the person who says yes to everything and says, yeah, I'll do it. No problem. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to give you a hard time. I'm just going to do everything that you tell me to do because you're telling me to do it. Everyone likes that person. Everyone likes that person. So we need to stop trying to be likable. We need to start trying to be powerful. Okay. So boundaries are as simple as prioritizing yourself over someone else. So sometimes that is as simple as just saying no. Something they talk about in boundaries is no is a complete sentence. You don't have to give a reason why. You can just say no. And it's as simple as a friend texting you, hey, are you free? I just got some tickets to this concert. No. And not because I have anything to do better in particular, because I want to sit on the couch and scroll my phone. That's what you're saying in your head, but you can say no. And I think a lot of people don't have the ability to say no. And so if you don't know, if boundaries in general is a big topic and we can get into it further, but the first, I challenge you to start saying no. And you can say no with kindness. You can just say no. The reason why no is the word no is demonized is because it's empowering. Essentially, it's someone sitting in their power, and no one wants people walking around powerful and sitting in their power. So no is a complete sentence. Okay, we'll start there with boundaries. There's a huge topic. Like boundaries could talk about, how you interact with your coworkers, how you interact with your family, how often you are in touch with someone. I feel like negotiating for job offers is boundaries. But anyway, we're just going to focus on saying no, because that's the root of boundaries. Just being comfortable saying no and being okay with the consequences of saying no. All right. So the next part of my power journey was something called frame control. And this is really, it's kind of a cringe story. I learned about frame control listening to a dating podcast specifically targeted towards men. It was called the Unapologetic Man podcast. I figured, they're talking about dating. I feel like women, I don't listen to a lot of women's dating podcasts. I know Call Her Daddy is popular. I got off Spotify years ago, so I don't listen to it. I know it's on, but I just don't feel like they're talking about the same stuff that men are talking about on dating podcasts. Long story short. So I learned about this concept of frame control. And frame control is really interesting. I feel like I would say, whereas like boundaries and having a community of powerful people, that's more defensive. Whereas frame control is a little bit more offensive. Like you're intentionally exerting your power by controlling a conversation or a situation. So an example of frame control, and there are books on this, and you can listen to the Unapologetic Man podcast if you want to hear it straight from him. He has a lot of episodes on frame control. But an example is if let's say someone asks you a question like, hey, why'd you wear that shirt today? A question that is obviously passive aggressive, or a question that is for the purpose of wanting you to feel bad about yourself or embarrass you. Someone like kind of bullying, in a way, but people talk to each other like this all the time. So it's like, okay, so why'd you wear that t-shirt today? An example of frame control is, the real question is, why did you wear that shirt today? So taking control of the conversation, there are all these little subtle things that you can do to make sure that the conversation is operating in your frame versus in the other person's frame. So a lot of situations put you in positions of feeling disempowered where we're supposed to be empowered. So I had some examples of where I struggle with power, and specifically in the service industry, because I was a waitress. I feel like I maybe adopted this idea that, because I was a waitress, I need to be overly kind to service workers because I was a waitress. And there's a difference between being overly kind and being a good customer. Like, I'm that person that was terrified of leaving a negative Google review, of leaving a negative Uber review. If the drive-through at McDonald's got my order wrong, I would just like eat the wrong order, as opposed to like avoiding. I would just be completely avoiding the situation, like, because I had no idea how to have control over the conversation. So frame control, the turning it around, and is pretty much the essence of it. And if I'm feeling defensive, if I'm being put on the defense, I need to immediately flip so the other person is on the defense. And obviously you don't do this in like romantic relationships where you're trying to build a connection with someone. Like, I don't talk like this with my wife or anything like that. But frame control is an excellent technique, especially at work. People will always want to question your work or question why you did something, and the immediate reaction is to be reactive and to over explain or defend, when it's like, how can you change the question so you're not the person in the hot seat? That's frame control. Okay, so the next step of my power journey was the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. So that's a book. We're going through the series if you're a listener of the podcast, and we're on commitment 10 this week, and that'll be in the next segment. But 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership was more about learning how to regain your energy so that you can sit in your power. So there's so many different commitments, but at the end of the day, we only have a certain amount of energy that we can, be our best selves and operate in our best selves in the day. We want to minimize anything that pulls and tugs on our energy so we can keep our power for the day. And 15 Commitments is definitely not about being dominating or domineering and hierarchy and structure. It's about not letting yourself get stressed, because stress is one of the biggest sucks of power. Stress and worry, jealousy, competition, all of these negative things that are really just a distraction. So 15 Commitments helps you minimize really your ability to be affected by anything outside of yourself. Like, there's a concept in 15 Commitments where things are no longer happening to me, they're happening for me. So I don't have to feel threatened if something is happening, because I know it's happening for me. So the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. Okay, and then last but not least, the 48 Laws of Power. So this book has been trending on TikTok, and I feel like it's a book that everyone has heard of, but never has read. So 48 Laws of Power, I will link a summary in the show notes, but that is an excellent book and a must-read book. It really is. And I hesitated talking about this because I was like worried, like, oh my gosh, if I tell people that I read the 48 Laws of Power, they're going to think I'm using it on them. And the truth is, I probably am, honestly, because I'm okay with wanting to be powerful. And if you need to read the book yourself, and let's go head to head. But yeah, if I cared that much, I wouldn't be telling you. So read this book. It's excellent. It's a historical book, and as well as an educational book, because they give you examples from history to explain whatever the law is that they're talking about. And it's really important. And something they say at the beginning of the book is that you can choose not to read this book and not follow these laws of power, but they're going to be happening regardless. So it's like, do you want to be a pawn, or do you want to be a king or a queen on the chessboard of life? Because people are using these laws of power on you. And it's funny, after reading the book, I was able to understand certain techniques people were using on me, because they're honestly straight out of the book. And that's not specific to any area of my life. In all areas of my life, people, whether consciously or subconsciously, are using power laws on me and using power laws on you. So read the book so you can at least like handle yourself in the ring, because and I'm not saying this to fear monger, but I know a lot of my listeners are people who care about their career, people who want to be promoted, people who want to move up, people who want to advance. And this is what they're not going to tell you in management training. Okay. They're not going to tell you about how to be powerful in management training. This is something that the local library is, you got to go to your local library, and Amazon, obviously, like this is what books are for. You need to, if you're listening to this podcast, you're in the right place. Like go back in my archive and look at all my book recommendations, look at all my podcast recommendations. This is what continuing education is. I brought Jay Snowden on the podcast, and in LinkedIn, I said specifically, do you remember that episode of Hawai'i where or the whole season of Silicon Valley, where the CEO of Hawai'i had a spiritual advisor with him at all times? Everyone remembers this character if you watch the show. That's why I brought Jay Snowden on to talk about other techniques to help you achieve your goals, because it's not just about going to these workshops and going to these networking events and attending Afrotech. Like, no shade to Afrotech. These things, these workshops, these seminars, these conferences, they're gaining power for themselves. You're talking about it. You're sharing about it, saying, hey, I'm going to be at this event. Are you going? They're telling you how to get your company to pay for it. Who really has the power here? You're going to show up at this conference with a whole bunch of people who are looking for exactly what you're looking for: a job, a connection, that next big thing. And that, and they're on stage or behind the scenes collecting the checks. Okay. So you have to use your critical thinking skills in regards to your career. If you have been doing the same thing, listening to the same best practices, and you're still in the same place, you need to change your education. That's what I had to do for myself. And like that, at the end result of this power journey, and I have so much further to go. I am at peace now. It's like power is calming. Like if I'm not running around ragged, worrying about other people and their issues and things that aren't my problem, like I'm having a good life. I'm having a happy life. I have family first, right? I have a family, and that's the most important part. I don't have time for anything else that is causing me stress. Like I need to understand how to handle these situations that we encounter every day whenever we leave the house. So anyway, so that's my power journey. So I'm going to recap the steps. So girl power in school. So get your group of power people together, get your power group together. That's number one. Make sure the 5 people that you spend the most time with are supportive of you gaining in power. Number 2, boundaries. No is a complete sentence. Don't be afraid to say no. Practice saying no this week. Okay. Frame control. Control the conversation. If you feel yourself getting defensive, figure out how to flip it around on the other person, and do not do this with loved ones. Okay. And 15 commitments of conscious leadership. Pay attention to where your energy is going. Keep your energy to yourself. Save your energy for yourself. And 48 laws of power. Study the rules of the game. Okay. Study the rules of the game, expand your mind, go to the local library and learn some stuff about life. Otherwise, you're going to be in the same place 10 years from now that you are today. Okay. All right. So that was the power segment, or LOL, the power segment. But yes, there's no such thing as empowerment, and you already have the power. All right. So let's go to the career segment. We're continuing with the 15 commitments of conscious leadership. Commitment 10, exploring the opposite. I commit to seeing that the opposite of my story is as true or as truer than my original story. I recognize that I interpret the world around me and give my stories meaning. So I'm going to read that again. I commit to seeing that the opposite of my story is as true or truer than my original story. I recognize that I interpret the world around me and give my stories meaning. Okay, so this is one of my favorite commitments. So, a perfect example is work performance. Okay, we're in performance review season. We're being graded, right? Um, we may think that we're doing a bad job. Okay. That's something that a lot of people feel panicking right before the performance review. They're like, oh my God, I didn't even do anything. I don't even know what I achieved this year. I didn't achieve anything. That's the story that we tell ourselves, right? So, a way to practice that commitment, what is the opposite of that story? Wow, I achieved a lot. Wow, I'm doing a really good job. Okay, which story do you want to believe? Because they're both created in your head, right? We don't know what the truth is. I mean, what is the real measurement of how well we're doing at a job? It's completely subjective. Okay, so you decide that you're doing a good job. You decide you're doing your best. You decide that you've accomplished a lot. And I'm sure once you believe that, you will have the evidence to support that. But if we believe that we're not doing anything, we're going to find the evidence to support that we're not doing anything, right? Okay, so commit to exploring the opposite. So whatever you think, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure. Actually, I'm an amazing success. Oh my gosh, I'm so ugly. Actually, I'm really beautiful. Because why would you believe a negative story about yourself? It's yourself. Like I'm all about obviously self-development, personal growth, but we have to believe that we are doing well in the moment that we are in. Okay. We need to believe that we're the most attractive, we're the most intelligent, we're the most hardworking, we're the most loving that we've ever been at this moment in time. Like we deserve to believe that about ourselves. Are we waiting for someone to tell us that? Would we even believe it if someone told us that? Okay. So we need to believe this about ourselves. So commit to exploring the opposite. And I will double down and say, commit to exploring the positive. Like, because if you're feeling good about something, you don't need to explore the opposite that you're not feeling good, right? But commit to exploring the positive opposites of the stories that you're telling yourself. Whew. Okay, wow, what an episode. So, what is Addy geeked out about this week? Oh my gosh. So, I'm borrowing from last week because I just got back from Boston on Monday. And last week I was geeked out about flying to Boston. I had such an amazing time. I love New England in September. Like, oh my gosh. And it rained too. It rained, but I had such a fabulous time. Got to have some good quality time with my wife and my brother. We live states apart and we did everything, you guys. We did the Salem tour with all the witch stories and the ghost stories. We went on a cruise in the Boston Harbor where they poured the tea and they, let us know the history of the city. We went to Legal Seafoods twice. We went shopping on Newberry Street, which I talked about last week. I posted a fun video of me trying on some sunglasses. If you follow me on TikTok or Instagram or all the platforms that I'm on, but oh my God, I had such a fabulous time. I was not like sad to come back to Atlanta, but I was really could have stayed in Boston longer. So if you haven't gotten to Boston, it's a fabulous city. I highly recommend you check it out. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. This may be one of my longest episodes. Boston is that girl, exactly. But I will see you guys next week, and there's more to come on the podcast and on the show. I will see you next time. Bye.